310864. Stations your final time cue will be with 15 seconds until airtime. Mark, 15 seconds until airtime.
Oregon is going to the Final Four.
The following is a Learfield presentation of the Oregon Sports Network.
And Oregon is going to play in the national championship game.
This is Duck Insider.
We need to get community. We need this thing to be bigger than just our little circle of players and coaches.
Are you kidding me? Touchdown, Oregon.
With 2 seconds on the clock. He hits it!
That's the bigger picture in this thing, allowing the community to celebrate the hard work, blue-collar mentality this group brings to the table.
And the Ducks have won it. The Ducks have won.
We get to struggle together, and we get to have joy together.
The Ducks are Pac-12 champions.
I am so proud right now to be the head coach at Oregon.
Oregon's a Fiesta Bowl champion in a 12-win season.
This is Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield, presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Now let's go live to the Country Financial Studio to talk Oregon Duck Athletics.
Welcome back inside the Country Financial Studio, our second show of 2024. Joey had it held down yesterday. I'll have it held down for the rest of the week. Ryan Milano with you as Joey is going on the road with men's basketball for their second week of Pac-12 play. Ducks 2-0 in the conference, now going on the road to the Washington schools. But we're still focused on football. The season may be over, but we're not done talking about it. You heard the wrinkle in the open. It's a little bit of a new open. I'm not sure if you caught it. 12-win season for the Ducks and a New Year's 6 Fiesta Bowl victory for Oregon. There are a whole lot worse things that you can be doing than playing football in the year 2024 and finishing off with the 6th 12-win season in program history. And I want to break down what a season it was for Oregon football. We'll touch on that. Rob Moseley will come. He'll join the show. We'll talk about it some more, talk about Oregon men's basketball, women's basketball, and continue to break down the Ducks on the hardwood as they continue to move forward through the beginning of their Pac-12 conference slate in the 2023-2024 season. But first, it's the Fiesta Bowl, a 45-6 win over Liberty, capping off what was a stellar season for Oregon and one that saw record on record on record fall for the Ducks, whether it be team accomplishment or whether it be individual accomplishment, offensively, defensively. It's just one of those years that when you look 10 years, 20 years from now, there will still be remnants of this season throughout the Oregon record books because that's how special of a season it was for the Ducks this season. I want to put my take on it and contextualize it a little bit because there are just so many different marks that I think are so important for this Oregon team this year, this Oregon program moving forward. And the first of which has to be Bo Nix, not only in the game against Liberty, having a tremendous game, setting multiple records, but also the records that he set throughout the course of the year. Bo Nix, he has the starts record, the most starts for any quarterback in all of college football with 61. That was done as an Oregon Duck. The completion percentage record for the highest completion percentage mark in the history of college football for a single season. He set that in the Fiesta Bowl, and I got to be honest with you, it wasn't always a sure thing. There were some times in there, especially early in the game, where Bo came in, there were a lot of numbers and a lot of benchmarks that he needed to hit, and he started out off pace, and then as the game went on, as he settled in, as the Ducks settled in throughout the remainder of the first quarter, second quarter, and then early in the second half, it was completion. And we've heard Bo talk so much over the course of the season about being an efficient quarterback. He was efficient. Those were the national records that Bo Nix set, but he still has so many more Oregon records. The completion record for a single season, that was set this year by Bo Nix. The passing yards record for a single season, that was set this year by Bo Nix. The passing touchdowns record, that was set this year by Bo Nix. So a whole bunch to be proud of for number 10. And not only that, but he was the fourth Duck ever to be a Heisman finalist. A special season for the man at the helm of the Oregon offense. And he was so special, and his receivers were so special, and the rest of the offense was so special. How about this? Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson, their names might not be etched out of the record book for a long, long, long time. The top receptions and receiving yards marks, number 1 and number 2, on both of those categories, Troy Franklin, Tez Johnson. Depends which one you're looking at. You could flip them either way. It's so rare to have two wide receivers on the same team have single-season marks for receptions, which Tez Johnson has now the Oregon all-time record, and receiving yards, which Troy Franklin has the Oregon all-time record, and still more records for those two as well throughout the course of the season. So a tremendous job by the pass catchers. And how about the men in the backfield? Bucky Irving, Jordan James, one of 2 tandems this year, running back tandems, that rushed for double-digit touchdowns this year. It was Oregon and Georgia, the only 2 teams through the first 13 games that had 10 touchdowns for both of their running backs. So a tremendous job there from the stable of backs behind, but none of that is possible. The passing numbers for Bo Nix, the receiving numbers for Troy and Tez, the rushing numbers for Jordan and Bucky, none of that's possible without the offensive line play. And this is where, for me, it really gets special. Jackson Powers Johnson, the first Remington Award winner in Oregon history, the best center in the country. Think about 3, 4, 5 months ago, coming into the season, uncertainty on the offensive line. Oregon loses 4 of 5 starters from last season. How is the offensive line going to hold up? Are they going to be able to protect Bo Nix the same? I mean, no, they won't be able to protect Bo Nix the same. They'll be able to protect him somehow even better than the offensive line did last year, which was a stellar offensive line. 5 sacks allowed all year for Oregon. To put that into context, if you watch some of the national semifinals a few days back, Michigan sacked Alabama's quarterback 5 times in 1 half. Oregon for the whole year allowed that many sacks. Bo Nix was upright the whole season. That's the job that this offensive line did. And for an offensive line in a university that produces so much offensive line talent, this is one of the best offensive line years for Oregon in quite some time, and the momentum is still rising. But that's just the offensive side of the ball. And oh yeah, Oregon, they scored 30+ in every single game this year. They're the only team in college football that can say that. The Ducks, offensive efficiency, offensive potency, and defensively, they buckled in. This was one of the best defensive seasons in the history of the University of Oregon as well. It was top to bottom, a team effort on the defensive side of the ball, and it's really hard to single out a single defensive player because of the depth that this Oregon team had defensively. The Ducks went almost 12 deep on the defensive line, from seniors to freshmen, and it was every single position group that saw talent and talent and talent. And Dan Lanning always says, if you're good enough, you're old enough, and there were a whole lot of people good enough, and everyone was old enough to play for this Oregon team. The Ducks held opponents to 10 or fewer points in 7 of the 14 games this year. Half the time, the opponents didn't eclipse 10 points this season. Oregon scored 30+ in every game. The points per game differential off the charts for Oregon. It started off with the highest margin of victory in over 100 years with the 81-7 win over Portland State, and then it was win, win, win after win, win, win as the Ducks continued to move forward and put their stamp on this 2023 season. An historic season for Oregon football, and one that will live in infamy for an incredibly long time at this university, because there's just so many individual efforts, team efforts across the board that really separated this Oregon team from the rest of the pack in college football and from Oregon teams of years past. This was one of the best teams that have ever been at this university, and there's just so much talent on this team, and there's still so much talent on next year's squad as well. There's still a whole lot more to talk about, breaking down the Fiesta Bowl and the 45-6 win over Liberty to cap off the season, writing the final chapter of this 2023 football year as we branch in to 2024. It's going to be Rob Moseley, the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com. He will be in the Country Financial Studio coming up for the next segment. We'll continue to talk about Oregon football, Oregon basketball, both on the men's and women's side of the ball. That's all coming up. You're listening to Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear winter, Toyota can't get enough of you because Toyota's got 22 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/23.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear winter, Toyota can't get enough of you because Toyota's got 22 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/23.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
GOAT, G-O-A-T, acronym, stands for Greatest of All Time. As in, spaghetti sandwiches for dinner? They're my fave. Dad, you're the GOAT.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
What is dedication?
My biggest fear in the middle of my addiction was that my kids wouldn't have a father. And I started thinking, you know what? This isn't my story. I definitely had to become a better man to be a better father. It's important to me that my kids are empowered and truly believe that if they can think it, they can do it.
That's dedication. Visit fatherhood.gov to hear more. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
We're back inside the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. Rob Moseley is here, the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, and it's the first time we get to see you in 2024, so the question has to be asked. Are you a New Year's resolution type of guy, or is there anything different for you kind of coming into the New Year's at a reset time?
Nope.
No. So you are completely comfortable with the way that you lived your life in 2023 and just want to continue to build upon that in 2024?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you are all about just continuing the same old, the status quo.
I feel like I'm being judged.
I'm not judging you. I feel like that you are someone who has built a strong foundation and you can build upon it. For me, I'm youthful. I feel like when I come into a new year, I feel like there's so many mistakes that I made in the previous year. It's like, I can't make those mistakes again.
That's not going to end, buddy. Ever.
Well,
you're not going to achieve perfection.
Well, there goes my resolution. I can't be perfect.
Nope. It's good. There's this concept in the business world called failing fast. You know, if you're going to fail at something, at least figure it out quickly so you can move on to your next endeavor.
Okay.
So, hey, what better time to realize that your New Year's resolution is bunk than January 3rd?
It lasted 3 days. We've got 362 to go, 64 to go, something like that.
Yeah, it's a leap year, right?
It's a leap year.
Yeah.
So we get an extra day in there.
Which I know because the Penguins play the Kraken in Seattle that day, and I will be there.
That is going to be a great road trip.
Yeah.
You know what else was a great road trip? Our trip down to the desert for the Fiesta Bowl on the 1st.
This guy with the transitions.
Hey, Rob, it's never a bad thing when you get to play a football game in the next year. You get to play a game in 2024 in the 2023 season. Obviously, college football playoff, the ultimate goal, but going to a New Year's Six Bowl, being able to play and being able to win in convincing fashion, that is nothing to sleep on for this Oregon team.
No, I think one of the many great things about Bo Nix's decision to participate in the game was the way he was able to enunciate that, like, he grew up watching games like the Fiesta Bowl, big-time New Year's Day bowl games, and dreaming of playing in them, and then here was a chance to do that. And so, yeah, I think for a lot of reasons, and some of them possibly justifiable, I think some people were kind of some fans, were taking this opportunity for granted because of, what else was potentially out there. And certainly there was some frustrations to deal with the way the Pac-12 championship game went. But, to have a guy like Bo kind of remind everyone, this is a big-time opportunity, this is a big game, there's a ton of history associated with this game, and he was looking forward to playing in it, I think was awesome. And it was, a reminder to all of us that not to take it for granted. So, and he certainly didn't with the way he played, that's for sure.
And one of the big parts of the game was all of the records that were broken in the game, whether it be from Bo with the completions record or the Oregon records, where he already had the completion percentage record in football, but he already had the total completions record for Oregon, past the passing yards record, passing touchdowns record. This is going to be a 2023 team that lives in the Oregon record books for such a long time, and Bo Nix is especially going to be one of those people that's at the top of Oregon record books for a lot of years to come.
Yeah, no, I mean, even in career records, he was passing some, names like Harrington and Musgrave and on. With what he did in just 2 years. And obviously the nature of college football has changed, and offenses have gotten a lot more prolific. Rules have changed. I did an event down in Arizona that Ahmad Rashad spoke at, and he was talking about the way rules are different now, and just sort of thinking out loud about what it would be like to play now when, defenses can't put their hands on receivers the way they used to, things like that. Pardon me. So, obviously the game has changed, but what Bo did, his efficiency was just off the charts. The match of player and coach and system and teammates, personnel, all that was just perfect, and it was really fun to watch all year.
And for him, he had his own records, but also kind of propelled a lot of other players, especially on the offense, to get their own records. From my perspective, it seems incredibly rare to have not only one but two guys at the wide receiver position to have the number 1 and 2 marks for single-season receptions and receiving yards leaders in the same year. That's what Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson did this year. It was a historic receiving season, especially for those two as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And so when you look at sort of the context of Oregon football and the wide receivers that come into this university as a whole, how sort of special is it for a prolific passing offense like this to put up marks where Troy is sitting at the top and Tez is also sitting at the top, when there have been some stellar receivers that have come through this university? Can you contextualize what this season for Troy and Tez have sort of meant to the University of Oregon?
Yeah, well, again, I think you talk about the mix of players and system and staff and all that, and it obviously just was a system built to spread the ball around and give guys a lot of opportunities in ways that, defied statistical production from years before. I think when you're talking about impact, I think you look forward. You think about recruiting, and you think if you can go to a high school receiver and say, hey, if you come to University of Oregon, this is the kind of production that you can look forward to potentially having if you take advantage of the opportunity, and what's that going to do to propel you forward in your career to the next level. That's obviously huge. So, I would say more looking forward than looking back in terms of what the significance of those stats could potentially be.
And there's a lot of players on this Oregon team that this may have been their final game, still decisions to be made. There's a lot that it is going to be their final game. But Jeffrey Boss is someone on the defensive side of the ball who said last week that he still has a decision to make. And he went out and he won defensive MVP in this Fiesta Bowl. You talked with him just a few weeks ago on the Mighty Oregon podcast. Talk to me a little bit about Jeffrey Bossa and who is he and sort of what the preparation is for him, where he can come out with these results of Fiesta Bowl defensive MVP. And, well, if he doesn't come back next year, what that legacy is for what has been a tremendous linebacker at Oregon.
Yeah, I think more than production, we talk a lot often about inside linebackers as kind of being the quarterback of the defense, but and I think that's generally true in terms of with the way communication flows between that position from front to back and the defense and all that. But he truly is a guy who I think, like Bo Nix on offense, just the level of preparation he put in on the understanding of what his side of the ball wanted to do, and the understanding of what the opposing offense was going to try to do, and And how to counter that was just next level. I mean, they called him El Jefe because he was the boss of the defense. And, Bo Nix talked after the Fiesta Bowl about, how he was kind of looking forward to not having to go against Jeff in practice anymore because Jeff just always knew what was coming. And, that tends to happen over the course of a season a lot of years where, just kind of get used to what the other side's doing. But clearly there was a mutual respect between Bo and Jeff that, those guys went about things the right way in terms of doing everything they possibly could to be ready to produce on the field. And then so you look at the numbers that reflect that, and they just show that all that work paid off.
And when you talk about Jeffrey Bassa as the leader of this defense, this was an historic defense for Oregon football. Half of the games this year, the defense held the opponent to 10 or fewer points. Has there ever been a time for you in your time watching Oregon football where you felt like coming in each and every week that this defense is an opportunity to put the game away immediately and then the offense can just run wild with it? Put this into context from Oregon defenses in years past. Have you seen a lot of defenses like this one?
Well, yeah, there was a lot there. I wouldn't say I ever went into a game this year thinking, oh, this defense is going to, shut out the opponent and, then the offense is going to go nuts. You just don't take anything like that for granted. There were so many good offenses and offensive players in the Pac-12 that you're always kind of on alert for threats. And so, yeah, it does make the results impressive. I do think that this program in general, and particularly in the last 15 years, gets so mischaracterized as offense only. I think if you look at the personnel in the teams, back in 2010, 2011, 12, 13, 14, put a lot of guys into the NFL. Even going back earlier, like the D-boys, the Patrick Chung, Jarris Byrd, those guys played with like Nick Reed. And there's a lot of really good defensive players that have come through this program. Obviously, it's at a different level now with Coach Lanning and the level of recruiting they're doing now. But, I think in particular, if you look back at some of those teams, around, 2010, 2011, 2012, there was some really good defense being played. This program that just got so overshadowed by the offense, which you understand because what they were doing was different and so prolific that it garnered all the headlines. But certainly to be able to pair elite offense with elite defense is a heck of a formulation. And it makes, again, the level of recruiting this program's doing on both sides of the ball really exciting to think about kind of what's ahead in years to come.
I want to continue to touch on some of the legacy that some of the players that are moving on have on this program. Jackson Powers Johnson, and sort of at the beginning of the season, coming into the year, you look at this offensive line, it's losing 4 or 5 starters from the season prior. You come into this season, and Jackson Powers Johnson comes in. He's the only Remington Award winner for best center in the country that this program has ever had. What's the job that the offensive line has done this year with sort of that contextualization of we didn't really know what was going to be from this offensive line coming into the season, the job that JPJ has done leading it?
Yeah, I think there were some questions around the program in the offseason whether he was going to be the center or if it was going to be Marcus Harper or maybe a freshman like Poncho comes in and he opened eyes right off the bat, and you saw the job he did in the bowl game, and you saw why people were so impressed with him right off the bat when he got here. So yeah, I think the year that Jackson Powers Johnson ended up having is made even more impressive by the fact that it didn't seem like he was just the plug-and-play answer when Alex Forsythe leaves, a guy who's played so much football here and had been so good at the center position. But he answered that challenge. He took the bull by the horns. He won that job. He performed at an elite level. He had fun doing it. My buddy Chris Hansen, who works at the Register Guard, I heard him on the radio with Steve Tannen a couple weeks ago, and he made a point that I hadn't thought about but was so right, that he'd never before seen a center be able to produce like a weekly highlight the way that JPJ did. And we live in kind of the viral social media era now, so it's more likely to happen now certainly than even 5, 10, not to mention 15, 20 years ago. But whether he was doing something sort of ridiculous, by sort of flying through the air at the end of a block, but also just hustling down the field, getting a pancake way down the field. It did seem like every game, to Chris's point, there was some highlight that involved Jackson Powers Johnson doing something ridiculous. And so to have a center making highlight reel plays is not something that happens that often. I think I'd have to go back to probably Max Unger, and that is some high praise for a guy who, performed at consistently elite level, but then was also so athletic that he could get himself kind of outside the box to where the center, was pulling on a play or something, was able to get your attention that way rather than just sort of being caught up in the mass at the line of scrimmage. So, he's such a character too. It just made him so fun to root for and fun to watch that way too, because we were all entertained, that's for sure, to answer his question.
Oh, I was absolutely entertained. You're absolutely right. It felt like every single week there was another one. And he made some of the highlights himself, running out. I always think of the Patrick Herbert screen for a touchdown where he breaks the tape coming across as the lead blocker as well. I want to touch on one final guy, and that's Steve Stevens, someone who finishes off his Oregon career, 6 years here with the program, gets the interception in the final game. For someone who's put in so much blood, sweat, tears with this university, to come in his final game with the Ducks and get that interception, that's got to be really special for a kid like that.
Yeah, there aren't many guys on the team that I respect more just kind of as a man, as a person. What he did, kind of sticking it out through some ups and downs, some injuries, maybe not always getting the playing time he probably wanted. But, that you talk about another guy that's like Jeff Bassa that just sort of knew all the ins and outs and was just kind of a quarterback on the field at one of those deep safety positions and kept himself ready and whenever an opportunity presented itself was willing to go in there and do his job. And, yeah, so to make a highlight reel play like he did in his last game, I was really happy for him because, yeah, that's just a kid who I think Oregon means a lot to him. And he meant a lot to this program over the years as a leader, as a producer, as a student athlete. He's excelling in his graduate program. Just a great kid. And you want to see good things happen to good people. The world doesn't always act so justly, but it did in the Fiesta Bowl.
It's Rob Moseley, editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com. The Ducks get a 45-6 win over Liberty to close out the football season in the Fiesta Bowl. We've still got to touch on hoops. Can you stick around?
Absolutely.
All right. When we come out from this break, it's going to be hoops talk, men and the women in conference play. Listen to Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Hey, Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
At Shadow Hills Country Club, we're more than just an award-winning golf course and practice facility. Our events team offers all-inclusive event pricing that allows us to take care of all the details while you enjoy your event. Our indoor and outdoor venues offer you a wide variety of fully staffed options that put the focus on you. From weddings to business and social events, at Shadow Hills Country Club Events Center, you get the benefits of a resort atmosphere and amenities in a peaceful country setting, just minutes from downtown Eugene. Call for a tour today or visit shadowhillsevents.com.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
This is your captain. We are going to be experiencing some slight turbulence. Please fasten your... Oh, hold on. Just got a video of my cat.
Imagine the pilot of an airplane was as confident as you are texting and driving. Seems kind of crazy when you put it like that.
Visit StopTextStopWrecks.org. A message brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, Project Yellow Light, and the Ad Council.
Into the building for the first time after the shooting. It was crippling, but it had to be preserved.
In response to the Pulse nightclub shooting that affected the LGBTQ community, Barbara Poma, owner of Pulse, founded the One Pulse Foundation to honor Pulse victims and survivors.
If you're an ally of this community, speak out. There are more of us together than apart. It is the power of love in its rawest form.
Join the fight for LGBTQ acceptance. Learn how at lovehasnolabels.com. Brought to you by Love Has No Labels and the Ad Council.
We're back in the Country Financial Studio. It's Duck Insider presented by OnPoint Community Credit Union. I'm Ryan Milano with Rob Moseley, editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com. Just talked football. Now switching over to hoops as both the men and the women just entering into conference play last week. And I want to touch on the women first. Went to Corvallis for the Pac-12 opener, an undefeated Oregon State team. Played a really solid first half. Oregon State ran away from it a little bit in the second half, but that's going to be the competition in this Pac-12 this year. It's such a loaded conference in the Pac-12, and Oregon's one of those teams that is sitting in a competitive spot in an incredibly competitive conference.
Yeah, I think that game just showed kind of how slim the margin for error is for that team, just the way things are right now, personnel-wise with injuries and things like that. If you do everything right, which they did in that first half, you can compete with pretty much anybody. But if you don't, it can get away from you, and it got away from them in the second half. So it's just going to be a grind for them all year to stick what they want to do, kind of trust their plans. They're going to have to stay healthy because, again, the margin in terms of depth is not great, with some injuries and things like that. So, players kind of moving around, playing different positions. They're trying to find the formula. And again, when it's there and when they hit on it and execute it, it can go well. But yeah, I think, to your point, this weekend coming up illustrates just what a grind it's going to be. I mean, you're playing two top 10 teams on the road. UCLA is really elite, and it's going to be an uphill battle all season, and this, just right off the bat this weekend. So, they're going to have to be really mentally tough day in, day out, but over the course of the season too, and ride out some highs and some lows probably that are inevitably going to come. It's two really extreme tests this weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. And for an Oregon team that right now is number one in the conference at fewest turnovers given up, and a team that defensively consistently held their opponents pretty below their season average, that is a recipe to success against a lot of really good teams. That's a way to get some wins.
Yeah, it's we were just talking football last segment. It's like you want to play ball control. You want to keep it low scoring. You want to not make any mistakes and kind of frustrate the other team. And that can be a recipe. Oregon women's basketball could be the Iowa football of women's basketball maybe. It's the formula's there. They just got to be able to execute it. And when they did in the first half in Oregon State, it was great. And when they did in the second half, it was not great.
Switching gears over to men's basketball, the Ducks on the men's side of things starting out 2-0 in conference play, 2 home wins at Matthew Knight Arena over the LA schools, and the Ducks looked pretty good in those first 2 games. In particular, the freshmen, Jackson Shelstad, Kwame Evans, really showed out. You had the opportunity to talk to Jackson Shelstad on the Mighty Oregon podcast. There's obviously a lot of comparisons to Peyton Pritchard that are made, but outside of that, Jackson Shelstad is a pretty darn good player in his own right. Well, what did you get talking to him?
Yeah, I just thought there's a lot of similarities with Peyton in terms of work ethic and being able to, get up early and get in, extra workouts and work out multiple times a day. Just really an intense focus on improving as a player, blocking out some other distractions, that maybe other kids their age, certainly, some of the distractions I got caught up in. I don't know about you, but, they were able to avoid, in order to remain focused on what they want to do. And, you hate to put too much pressure on a kid, but I feel like partly because of the role he's being asked to play compared to Peyton, I just think he's probably a little ahead of where Peyton was in his career. I mean, things really turned for Peyton, his junior year. And it just seems like Jackson, with some of the shots he's making, that deep three against UCLA, obviously the shot against Michigan, the things Peyton was doing later in his career, he's already doing. I think defensively, he's really an impact player at that end too, and just a heady, mature kid. I mean, he's again, we talked about Steve Stevens, and myself as an Oregon graduate, it's like I take pride in guys that represent us really, really well. Bo Nix is another guy that did that, and Jackson Shelstad is a guy I think we're all gonna be able to take a lot of pride in over the next 2, 3, whatever years, hopefully more than that even. That he's here representing the Ducks, because I just think he's he's in position to be a really great ambassador for this program and this university.
And we've heard it so much from Dana Altman over the past few years that the initiative to get into the gym and that work ethic really translates to result on the court.
For sure.
And it's clear that Jackson Shellstad has that. We hear it a lot in media availabilities. That's the one main thing that his teammates and his coaches talk about with him. But I think what's also really beneficial for a guy like Jackson Shellstad is that in his position group, there's a lot of veterans on this team, in particular Jermaine Kuznar, but also Keyshawn Barthélemy, Kerry Oquendo, guys that have been around collegiate basketball and have done it in Shellstad's position group that can really help navigate him through this freshman year.
That's an interesting point. Yeah, I don't have a great sense for any of those relationships. But those three guys are all kind of different guys too. They all have different backgrounds. They all have kind of different games. And so kind of you'd surmise that from Jackson's perspective, it's different types of role models that he can kind of look at and maybe pick and choose. Hey, I can take this from this guy, this from this guy, this from this guy. So, it's an interesting point because there's a diversity of skills, talents, personalities, all that in that group that kind of are the mentors for him. But I just think he's so heady with the way he's performing. I just see him as complimenting those guys. He's a colleague of those guys. He's I'm sure he's respectful and all that, but I think he more than holds his own with his as a figurehead on that team already at this point.
Yeah, when you're looking at this team, there's a lot of experience, depth in the guard rotation especially, but the Ducks are still fighting a little shorthanded without Nate Biddle, without N'Faly Dante at this point, but there's just something about this team, especially over the last few weeks. The Ducks have they found a way to win, and it feels like Dana Altman teams have sort of had that capability. It's really not quantifiable over the last few years.
Yeah, well, I think for both the men's and women's programs, I mean, they're playing so different right now than probably over the summer they thought they were going to be playing at this point in the season. And so to have to kind of shift on the fly and kind of reinvent yourself is really, really hard because, you go into every year kind of with a plan. Here's what our identity is going to be. Here's how we're going to play. And then they have to kind of scrap that and reverse course once the season's already underway is tough. And we're seeing the women's program deal with some struggles from that. And no doubt the men are going to have some hurdles too. But yeah, I think over the years we've gotten used to seeing Dana Altman teams as the season progresses kind of click better and better and better. And this group is clicking in a different way than I think they thought they were going to need to. But also potentially a little earlier too. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens when everybody's healthy. What's the style of play look like? What do rotations look like? Minutes, all that. Are there going to be some growing pains, kind of re-implementing those guys in and now kind of shifting again, finding some sort of middle ground between the team you are now and the team you thought you were going to be going into the season? So, these next few weeks, it sounds like, just reading reports, I haven't been around the team much because of football obligations and the holidays and all that. It sounds like the expectation is that, they're going to get some guys back maybe as early as this week, but hopefully as January progresses at least. And so, again, watching those games when guys do get kind of re-implemented back in the rotation will be so fun and interesting to watch.
The Ducks have Washington on the schedule on the road in Seattle coming up tomorrow night. That is Rob Moseley, editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, hanging out with us. And Rob, here's to having a imperfect 2024.
100%.
100%.
And loving it. Embracing it.
All right, we're back after this. We're hearing from Dana Altman next on Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Dear winter, Toyota can't get enough of you because Toyota's got 22 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/23.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Dear winter, Toyota can't get enough of you because Toyota's got 22 vehicles with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive, and that's more than any other auto brand. So you bring the action and we'll bring the traction. Always Toyota. Toyota, let's go places.
Based on manufacturer's websites as of 11/21/23.
Your daily dose of Oregon athletics. This is Duck Insider from Learfield.
I'm Chris Jakovic. I served in the United States Air Force and I deployed 3 times. So in 2017, I was serving as an Air Force First Sergeant. Our motto in that role is my job is people, everyone is my business. But unfortunately in that year, I would lose my own brother, Lance Corporal Adam Jakovic, to suicide. The majority of veteran suicides are from guns. I store my weapons securely, not only for myself, but for my family. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide. My service never stops.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
Babes, what are you doing?
What? I'm just mowing the lawn.
No, it's blazing hot and dry out here. Don't you remember? Smokey Bear says.
Avoid using power equipment when it's windy or dry.
Where'd you learn this?
Oh, it's on
SmokeyBear.com with many other wildfire prevention tips.
Right. Thanks, Honey Bear.
Because remember, only you can prevent wildfires.
Brought to you by the USDA Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
We're back in the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union, and we're about to hear from Dana Altman. It's a 2-0 Ducks team in conference play. Oregon hosted USC and UCLA before the new year. Ducks got the win, 82-74 over the Trojans, and a 64-59 win over UCLA. Both games a little bit close. Both games had ebbs and flows in them, but ultimately Oregon went on the runs they needed to win. Dana Altman talking to the media after the game against UCLA. This interview brought to you by the Willamette Valley Cancer Institute and Research Center. Fight like a duck with exceptional cancer care close to home. Here's Coach after the win.
Jackson gives you guys, I think it was 16 points there in the second half. I know we talked a lot about him the other day, but what can you say about him at this point?
Made some big shots, which, the turning point in the game there at the 15-minute mark, we're down 5. And then at the 11-minute mark, we're up 5. And I think we had like a 12-2 run there or something. But our defense picked up. Jackson hit a couple shots there, and the game just flipped, and thought that 4 or 5 minute stretch was probably the difference in the game after we had really played poorly again the first 5 minutes of the second half. Poor turnovers and just bad decisions. Didn't give ourselves a chance on the offensive end, which led to some easy baskets for them. So, but again, that 4 minute stretch there from 15 to 11, the game really flipped there, and Jackson offense was a big, big part of that.
What's the significance for you guys of this win of opening 2-0? What are you guys taking away from this?
Well, you got to win at home, if you're going to be involved. And UCLA's played a tremendous schedule, with the exception of the Northridge game. I mean, they lose a 2-pointer to Marquette that's rated. They lose a 4-pointer to Gonzaga, who's rated. They go on the road to Villanova, who's no fun to play. They play Ohio State. We saw Ohio State down in Florida. Their physicality would have, at that point in the season, we wouldn't have been able to play with them. So, their losses have been really, to good teams. Maryland's playing really good. So we knew it was going to be a fight. And, they got the win over at Oregon State, so got a little mojo going again. So, we needed to compete. We were hoping to get the score in the 70s, get a little faster pace game. They like to play a little slower pace. We wanted a little faster pace on the offensive end. We didn't really get our transition game going, although 17-7 on fast break points, I thought was a big. And then second chance, we were down 7-0 at half, and we got 9 offensive rebounds second half, which just at least gave us some more energy. And we didn't get as many points out of them as I'd have liked, but we at least had some more energy because of those offensive rebounds. They had all the energy in the first half with their second chance. It was 7-0 second chance points in the first half. And on a 1-2 possession game, second chance points, 6-4 in the second half, you know, was a big change.
After Kwame picked up that third foul there, you guys go 5 guards for the rest of the first half. Just how do you think you guys fared there, especially Bam kind of getting in there? Is that kind of de facto 5?
Yeah, we Big Mo had 2. I didn't want to get them both with 3. So we wanted to try to get, you know, to the halftime with, you know, with what we had. And so the guys did a good job. You know, we were flying around pretty good. I said, fellas, we got to use our quickness as much as we can here. They got the size advantage. We got to use some quickness. And I thought we flew around a lot better there to give ourselves an opportunity.
Hey, Coach. UCLA's leading scorer in the season, Sebastian Mack, was held to 6 points on 3-base shooting, and that's coming after your performance against USC, where Boogie Ellis was held to 4 of 15 shooting. How have you been able to contain like the high-level scorers on opposing teams?
Well, I thought our awareness on him was pretty good. He's really good at getting to the rim. I mean, he's had 91 of his shots right at the rim. I mean, he's a tremendous driver. So we said if he hits some threes, if he hits some jumpers on us, we'll have to live with it. But we just can't let him get to the rim and like he wants to, because he's really good at it. And thought our guys did a pretty good job. I thought Mo helped out a little bit a couple times, KJ a couple times that kind of threw him off his rhythm. But he is a really good athlete, a really good player, can get to the hole. You know, I thought that was a big key. We had a hard time staying with their 4 and 5, man. You look at Bana was 6 for 7, and the big freshman from Turkey, I don't know how to pronounce his name, so I won't try, but he was 5 for 7. So those 2 guys really, really gave us a lot of trouble inside.
3-pointers were a big difference in the ball game. How are you able to alter shots or alter looks, especially out of the zone?
Well, you know, we shot 40%, which was huge. You know, Jackson with that little string there, you know, of hitting 3 was huge for us. But, you know, our activity, they're not a great 3-point shooting team. So we wanted to try to play inside out, take Bana out of it a little bit. He hurt us last year as a freshman, and we knew how good he was, how athletic, and how would he block, how many shots? 5. He did a great job protecting the hole for them. You know, so we wanted to play inside out, get after their shooters. You know, the guy we were really worried about was Lazar, you know, and he went 0 for 6. So that was probably the biggest thing. He had that one wide open one when they were coming back there across from their bench. And I just like, dang, we can't give him that shot. Fortunately, he left it short. But he was the one guy that, and McLennan came into the game shooting 42%. You know, so we had to be concerned about him. But the rest of the guys, we wanted to play them inside out, you know, and take away their driving lanes. And we did some good things there. You know, they shot 42% overall, you know, and when you could take out the 2 bigs, 6 for 7 and 5 for 7, you know, the perimeter guys did a tremendous job. And 15% from 3, didn't foul a lot. You know, there wasn't many fouls called in the second half. But it was one of those games where, you know, we just found a way, and Jackson hit those 2 big free throws there late to, you know, give us that cushion, because we were getting ready to foul if he missed that first one. So, but fortunately he hit them both, and the pressure was off.
What did you make of that sequence right before that possession where you break the press and Jackson lobs it up and Kwame dunks it? What's your guys' rule on if he should dunk it, take it, draw the foul? Were you okay with that sequence?
Well, you kind of got to let him play. I'd liked a little cleaner look than the one he got. I've got to be honest, with the 1-point lead. You know, we always talk about breakaways. Obviously, if you got a breakaway, take it. So the foul, you know, we don't have to hit the free throws, but that wasn't exactly a breakaway. But they figured it out. Jackson made a nice pass, and KJ finished it. So I was nervous, I got to admit. That's a 50-50 play at best. I'd have rather, you know, as hard as the shot was, I'd have probably rather seen Jackson dribble it out, make him foul him. But KJ did finish it.
What do you make of Jermaine's game today? Obviously had a tough night shooting the other day, but scored 15, really good floor game. Came out with big buckets.
Good. I thought he played good. Defensively, he gives us a purpose. He's a good defender. He kind of gives us a personality. The freshmen are kind of following him, how hard he plays in that. I think Jermaine now without Dante out there, Jermaine's the one guy with experience that gives us a personality. And, guys are starting to follow him a little bit. But you don't come out as a freshman and know how to handle yourself, react, and Jermaine's trying to give him some leadership. And so, I've been really pleased with him. I think he's done a good job.
It seems like this game was a little bit rougher than your guys' last game. Just how do you think the team, especially the freshmen, kind of responded to that when it was tough?
No, they try to muddle it up. They're very athletic, big, physical. So they try to beat you up. That's you look at all their scores. They're one of the best defensive teams in the country because they really pack it in there and they make you. It was physical. I personally, I was just worried about all the hands they were using. I don't mind physical defense, but I just thought they were using their hands a little bit, and so I complained about that a little bit because playing hard-nosed defense one thing, but freedom of movement is a big rule. So, but no, Mick does that. That's why they've been good. They're physical. They beat you up. And they got the bodies to do it. They're deep and they're big and those guards are athletic. So that's their style. And, that's kind of always been his style at Cincinnati and the good years that he's had at UCLA. They want to be, a team that beats you up a little bit and beats you on the boards. And so you've got to be ready for that. And with the exception of last year, they were probably just better than us last year. They got us 3 times. But our guys, the previous years had adjusted pretty good, and we tried to prepare them for what was coming tonight. That it was going to be a different game, just the way they play. They don't want to run. They want to make it a half-court fight. And so you kind of got to get ready for that.
Last question. The telecast was saying that Infali and Nate could be back in sometime in January. Is that accurate?
I hope. They've been working. Nate's doctor's report came out great when they took the cast off, which was a surprise to all of us. And so he's moving a little quicker. So we're hoping that he might be ready. Dante keeps working out. So we're hoping that they're ready to go. Obviously, it'd be a big boost. But, the guys are playing hard. We just got to keep them playing hard till hopefully we get some reinforcements. Mookie's working out too. So if we just get any of the 3, Mookie's athleticism, but those guys have been also out for 5 weeks, so the conditioning factor, even if they were to come back, it'd be in such a limited role for 2 or 3 weeks just because, Dante obviously hasn't been running with his knee. Nate could have been running with his cast, but he said the balance wasn't good, so he didn't run much. But no, we just hope to get somebody back because the guys are playing hard, and like I said, I can't fault their effort. I thought we played hard. I'd have been really disappointed if we'd have lost because we had some really inefficient, just didn't run our stuff. They're late and just mental mistakes that we made. I'd have been really disappointed with that, but guys found a way. So it's a big part of any season, just finding a way. So thanks.
Just find a way. That's what's been going on for Oregon men's basketball. Still waiting on a few reinforcements. Maybe there'll be some back either this weekend, next weekend. You heard Coach Altman talking about the timetable on some of the reinforcements coming in, but this team finding a way to win with some stellar guard play and a lot of team effort across the board, as well as a few standout freshmen. The Ducks, they'll be in action coming up tomorrow. We'll talk about that and a few other things going around the department when we come back. It's Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
As a local community credit union founded by teachers, OnPoint is committed to supporting the students and faculty at the University of Oregon. And on game day, we're right there with you, on the field, in the bleachers, and in the classrooms. Drop by our local branch today and discover the many ways OnPoint can help support your financial well-being. OnPoint Community Credit Union. People are the point. Federally insured by NCUA. Equal housing opportunity.
Hey Duck fans, we're all about protecting our home turf here in Eugene. You should do the same for your home with Country Financial Insurance. Most home insurance doesn't account for inflation, but with Country Financial, yours can. If something happens to your home, make sure you can rebuild the same house in the same place. Call a local representative or 866-COUNTRY and get a solid defense for your home. Home insurance policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Casualty Insurance Company, or Country Preferred Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois. Property must meet age and condition requirements, which vary by state.
You're listening to Duck Insider. Duck Insider on the Oregon Sports Network from Learfield.
Wouldn't it be great if life came with a remote control? You know, you could hit pause when you needed to, or hit rewind, like that time you knocked down that wasp's nest. Well, life doesn't always give you time to change the outcome, but prediabetes does. With early diagnosis and a few healthy changes, you can stop prediabetes before it leads to type 2 diabetes. To learn your risk, take the 1-minute test today at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
When might you be buzzed? When you suddenly love everything.
You guys, I love this song. I love these nachos. I love our kickball league. Ugh! I love this guy. What's your name? You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzzed warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
I love your car. Is this real leather?
We're back on Duck Insider here in the Country Financial Studio. Duck Insider brought to you by OnPoint Community Credit Union. A whole lot going down on the hoops front over the next few days for both the Oregon men and women's basketball team. It's time for the Cafe Yum 2-minute drill. So Oregon basketball, they will be in action tomorrow on the road in Seattle. They play the Huskies at 6 o'clock. It's a Husky team that is currently sitting at 8-5 right now overall, but with a few big games in there. So what is looking to be a pretty competitive and highly contested matchup up in Seattle coming up tomorrow. Also, the Ducks play Washington State on Saturday at 7 p.m. Oregon women's basketball, they have a tough test in front of them. 2 top 10 teams down in Los Angeles over the weekend. It will be number 2 UCLA on Friday at 7 and number 9 USC on Sunday at noon. Now, what does tomorrow's show look like? There is a whole lot to still go through with the Fiesta Bowl. We had Dusty down on the field talking with a whole bunch of players who have had a tremendous legacy on the University of Oregon. So we'll continue to touch on this football season, the Fiesta Bowl, and more tomorrow. Jermaine Couisnard, you didn't get to him today. He talked with the media after the UCLA win. We'll hear from him. And then Joey Mack will join us as we preview the matchup, get in depth Ducks and Dogs coming up tomorrow night. So that's everything that we have for the show tomorrow, and it should be a good one as we continue to move forward in the early year of 2024. Have a great day, everybody, and go Ducks.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by